Hello, everyone. Welcome tonight to our story sharing session. I'm Julie Flygar. I'm the president and CEO of Project Sleep, and I'm so excited tonight to introduce you guys to Chelsea. Hey, Chelsea.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Julie.
And how are you and where are you tonight?
I am live streaming from Bonnier, Georgia, which is in middle Georgia, and I am doing really well. Little nervous, but ready to do this. Excited.
Yes. I'm so excited to have Chelsea share her story tonight. This has been in the works for a while, and it's just a huge joy and honor to have gotten to know Chelsea over the last couple of years and now have her share her story. Before she gets started, though, I just want to mention a few things for those that are tuning in. Please share where you are watching from. It's really fun to see, and for Chelsea afterwards to go back and see all the different locations that people were tuned in from. So share where you're watching from. And please remember that the video will be recorded, and please share it. Share it to your Facebook page and give us lots of hearts and likes and all those for engagement. So Facebook knows this is something that they should, be letting other people know about. And remember that with the recording, your comments will stay with the video though. So you don't want to share anything in the comments of the video that you wouldn't want to share publicly, because those will stay with the video. And we do these broadcasts for education and awareness purposes, of course. So if anything about Chelsea's story gives you questions about your own medical experience, please bring those questions to your sleep specialist. And see if we have any Project Sleep announcements. I feel like we do. We've had a lot going on. We made it through March, which was a very busy month for us. We had the wonderful sleep-in with incredible engagement. I think that's the 8th annual sleep-in event. We've surpassed our fundraising goal. You guys had such great sleep spirit around the world. So thank you to everyone for participating in the sleep-in 2022. And we had, we were in Rome at World Sleep, and then I gave a TEDx talk, which I can't wait to share as soon as the video is available, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But we do have something exciting coming up to our advocacy alert. Every year we do a big advocacy push to get members of Congress signed on to a letter to support the sleep portfolio at NIH and other institutions. And that will be coming up really, really soon in the next couple of days. So please stay tuned for that. And we give really simple instructions to just send it. You can do it over email. You don't have to call anyone. You don't have to go to any meetings in person. You can make these requests over email. And it's really important, and it's very quick turnaround. So please look for that this week. Save a few extra spoons for that project. And of course, the RVN application, if you are inspired by hearing Chelsea's story and would like to become a Rising Voices speaker, the application is open until April 15th. So you still have
apply.
Yes. Please join our team of amazing speakers and writers around the world. And let us know if you have any questions about that. We're happy to answer any questions and get as many people as involved as we can, because your stories are so important. So I think with that, let's hear a story. I'll introduce you, Chelsea, if you want to go ahead and pull up your slides.
Okay.
Chelsea Cataldi is a world traveler who enjoys creating things with her hands. She was diagnosed with type 1 narcolepsy in 2010 while living in Japan. As a speaker with Project Sleep's Rising Voices of Narcolepsy program, Chelsea shares her story of how something as simple as laughter can change a life. So with that,
here we go. Sorry.
Take it away, Chelsea.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Julie, for that great introduction. And thank you so much for listening. We will be doing a question and answer segment at the end. So if you have any questions you want to type in, please do so. And remember what Julie said, don't put anything private that you don't want to be remembered on the internet, because what you type in will be remembered and it will be posted with my video. So growing up, I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's me, cute little blonde with the glasses. I am a 5th generation New Mexican. I I have two older brothers, I'm the youngest of three. My mom had three kids under 3 at one time. God bless her. I don't know how she and my dad did it. Just to give you an idea of how close in age we are because of where our birthdays fall. Right now, I am 45 and my brothers are 46 and 47. This is another picture of us as teenagers, just to get across how really close in age we are. I'm a very independent person. I've always been told to follow my heart, which is something that I've taken with gusto and done, and I love to travel. My grandmother told me when I was really little that I was an independent little cuss, which I take as such a compliment. She also told me that my love of travel comes from being a descendant of some of the very first pioneers of the Rocky Mountains. And so she says I had the pioneer spirit. I took that pioneer spirit with me and I moved to New York City and lived there for most of my 20s. What a fabulous place to live in your 20s. I'll tell you, New York is the best city in the world. And, but eventually I got tired of the crowds and I missed the wide open spaces. And so I moved back to Albuquerque. And I'm so glad I did because then I met my husband, Nick, who was stationed in the Air Force there at Kirtland Air Force Base. We dated for a couple of years and got married. And then the next year, when I was 32, the Air Force sent us to Okinawa, Japan, which of course, for someone who loves to travel, it was a dream come true. As we moved to Okinawa, I got a job working for the Air Force as a commander's secretary. There's my official photo. I really enjoyed living in Japan. I don't think you can enjoy travel as much as I do without having a great reverence and respect for different cultures and the differences between us and the similarities between us also all around the world. I was one of 7 secretaries in our office, the only American secretary. All the others were either local, they were local nationals, either from mainland Japan or from Okinawa. They were so kind and they really took me under their wings and were not annoyed by my constant questions about their culture and their practices. And I really just loved it there. So we would spend so much time talking about things like, for instance, the Okinawan culture and their religion, it really revolves around ancestry worship. And they have such huge respect for spirits. So spirits of the deceased, of their ancestors, spirits of the living, spirits of the natural world, gods, everything. They just have such a huge reverence for the spiritual world. And I found that so fascinating. I don't know, I mean, probably because being from New Mexico, we, the Day of the Dead is a huge celebration that they have there. And I always thought that was so cool and fascinating. And so maybe that's something that I felt like a connection with when we were in Japan. One morning I was standing around with the other secretaries and drinking coffee and talking. And one of the secretaries saw a spider that was jumping up the wall right by her desk. And she went to squish it. And another one said to her, no, don't kill it. It's bad luck to kill a spider. And she said, only after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And she squished it. And I don't know why, but I thought that was just the funniest thing. And as I was laughing, I felt this enormous weakness, just this shroud come over me. And I lost the grip of my coffee cup and my arms dropped to my side and my coffee spilled all over the floor and the mug broke into a bunch of pieces. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't know I knew there's something wrong with the situation, but I didn't pay too much attention to it because I thought, I gotta clean up this coffee. And I did, and went along about my business. But then within the next couple of weeks, as we were talking and laughing, I dropped 2 more coffee cups and broke 2 more coffee cups in the office. And I thought, there's something not right with this. And I was right, there was something not right with that. I also had nighttime disruptions. These nighttime disruptions they're really hard to explain. Like, I thought my house was haunted. And I don't know if it's because we talked so much about spirits and stuff during the day, mainly because of my interest in driving the conversation. But I would like experience these things. Like when I swear someone was breaking into our house and my husband's asleep beside me and I hear someone breaking through the front door, like coming through the door and breaking into our house and coming up the stairs. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, why is my husband not doing something? You know, does he not hear this going on? And then something shifted and it was like, did I wake up? Was I asleep? I wasn't sure. It was so confusing. But then I felt my husband stroking the back of my hair, and because he was laying behind me, and I thought, oh, it's so nice. He's comforting me because it must have been a dream. Maybe I made some noise. I don't know, but he's comforting me, and that's so nice because normally he sleeps through my nightmares. And so I turned around to say thank you, and he was facing the other way, and he was dead asleep. I swear I felt something stroking my hair. I don't know what was going on. I for sure thought my house was haunted, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't sleep well at night because that's how my nights went. I'd be so tired during the day, and I'm not just saying tired. I would be sleepy, so sleepy. Like I would have this undeniable urge to fall asleep. So I would get up from my desk because my desk was out in the open. I worked for the commander, and his office was behind me, but I didn't have any walls or anything. Just my desk was right there. So if I fell asleep at my desk, everyone's going to see. So I got up and I'd go into the bathroom and I'd sit on the toilet and prop my head up against the stall wall and just take a little cat nap until I was like, okay, and I go back to work so I could do it again. And that's how I got through the days. And it's not, being a secretary, it's important, but not exciting work. And especially working for the military. There were times I would be typing up like something on military protocol or something. And I was typing, and all of a sudden I looked at my screen and I had typed the word vanilla ice cream in the middle of a sentence. Where did that even come from? I like chocolate ice cream. Why did I write vanilla ice cream? I don't know. I deleted it and I went on about my business, but there were a lot of things that were just not right in my life. So I went to the doctor, and I am really fortunate that the doctor I went to, he listened to things I had to say, and he asked me questions. And he said to me, the weakness that you feel when you're laughing, is it bilateral? And I thought, bilateral? By both sides. So I bent my right arm, I bent my left arm, put both arms down. I thought, oh my God, yes, absolutely. It's 100%. Yeah, it's always bilateral. I had never even thought of that. I had been taking copious notes of when things happened to me and why they happened and how they happened and what I was eating. And I never thought about, did it happen on both sides? Then he asked me, how was my sleep? And I told him, you don't want to know about my sleep. And he said, I'm particularly interested in your sleep. And I said, well, if I tell you, you're going to think I'm crazy. And if you have to preface a sentence with, you're going to think I'm crazy, then they're going to think you're crazy. What else are they going to think? So I told him, I think my house is haunted. I have these crazy things that happen to me. I told him about someone breaking into my house, about my husband stroking my hair. I told him that there were times where I felt like someone was on top of me and I was this heaviness on top of my chest or something. I had a hard time breathing, but I could hear what was going on around me. Like I could hear the hum of the air conditioner. I could hear the actual noises going on around me, but I was completely unable to move or scream or get myself to like wake up. I also had moments where I could feel something slap me, and I would still feel the tingling on my skin, on my leg when I woke up. So these were not dreams I was having. These things were really happening to me, and I was trying to explain that to him. And his follow-up question to me was, are you sleepy during the day? And I thought, did you not just listen to anything I said? Of course I'm sleepy during the day. How can you experience all the things I'm having at night and not be sleepy during the day? And he said, I think you have narcolepsy. You need to have a sleep study done. And I was like, I don't have narcolepsy. Like, I had spent so much time on Google looking to see what I had, and I was convinced that I either had a brain tumor or MS. And and I even told him, are you sure it's not something like wrong with my brain? Like, I don't have a brain tumor? I mean, why else would I be losing control of my muscles and holding things? And he said, we can explore that later, but first you really need to have a sleep study because I'm really convinced you have narcolepsy. And I encourage you, he told me, I encourage you to go home and look it up and see if it doesn't sound familiar to what you're experiencing. I was like, all right, I'll do that. And it took me a good few months before I could actually get my sleep study done because we were overseas. We had to get referrals done. Insurance doesn't cross countries, to pay for it. So there was a lot of red tape we had to go through. And so I had a lot of time to research whether or not I thought that I had narcolepsy. And I read it and I thought, oh my God, this is textbook. Like, I have all the symptoms. This is crazy. And I even told my husband, oh my God, I think I have narcolepsy. And he goes, yeah. And you also were sure you had a brain tumor and you were also sure that you had MS. And I was like, touche, I was. But this seemed really real. And so I went and I had my sleep study and I was diagnosed with narcolepsy and cataplexy at the age of 33. About narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is a chronic neurological disorder that impairs the brain's ability to regulate the sleep-wake cycle. There are two types of sleep. There's REM sleep and non-REM sleep. And REM is an acronym for rapid eye movement. So you have stage 1 of non-REM, which is just a really short period before you fall asleep, from wakefulness to sleep. Then you have stage 2, which is a light sleep that you have. And then stage 3 non-REM is a deep sleep. And that's the sleep that's necessary for you to feel refreshed in the morning. Then there's REM sleep, and that's where vivid dreams occur. And that's where your brain activity and your breathing is similar to when you're awake. Now, people with narcolepsy have what's called REM intrusion, and that's aspects of REM sleep that come out of sync at night. So it's kind of like your sleep is a playlist on your iPhone, and it's on shuffle and repeat. It's chaotic. You have dream sleep occurring all over the place, from when you're supposed to fall awake, when you're supposed to fall asleep, when you're awake, through all the different stages. It's not how it's supposed to be at all. Also, narcolepsy affects 1 in 2,000 people. That's 200,000 Americans and 3 million people worldwide. It's a lot more common than people think. The major symptoms of narcolepsy: excessive daytime sleepiness. These are periods of extreme sleepiness during the day that feel comparable to how someone without narcolepsy would feel if they stayed awake for 48 to 72 hours. Think about when's the last time you stayed awake for 2 or 3 days. That's a long time. It's not just feeling tired. Excessive daytime sleepiness is the sleepiness that called me to the bathroom to put my head up against a stall wall to take a little cat nap. Cataplexy. Cataplexy is a striking, sudden episode. Sorry, let me start that over again. It's a striking, sudden episode of muscle weakness that's usually triggered by strong emotion, such as laughter, exhilaration, surprise, or anger. The severity can vary from a slacking of the jaw to the buckling of your knees to falling down completely. The duration can last a few seconds to a few minutes, and the person remains fully conscious even if they're not able to speak during the episode. My dropping coffee when I was laughing was cataplexy, but I had no idea. And it wasn't just dropping coffee. It eventually got to where I would have full body collapses. I would just collapse like a puddle on the ground, but I was completely aware of everything going on around me, but I could not move and I could not speak. I remember going to a narcolepsy convention one time and hearing a teenage gal speak, and she said she had been at the mall with some of her friends, and she had a cataplexy attack, and nobody she was with knew she had narcolepsy. And some bystander stopped and started giving her chest compressions because they thought she'd stopped breathing. And she was unable to tell them to stop, but she could experience the CPR. And I thought that was the most vivid and accurately horrific explanation of what cataplexy feels like. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations. These are visual, auditory, or tactile hallucinations upon falling asleep or upon waking up. They can be frightening and confusing. So the break-in I heard, the stroking of my hair that I felt, the slap on my leg, all of that, those were hallucinations I was having. Sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is the inability to move for a few seconds or minutes upon falling asleep or waking up. It's often accompanied by hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations. It's important to know that people without narcolepsy can and do experience these things, the hallucinations and sleep paralysis. In fact, about 1/3 of all people experience them at some point in their life, usually during periods of high stress or poor sleep. But for people with narcolepsy, when we experience them, they're much more frequent and they're much more consistent over time. So when I was unable to move and I could hear the things going on around me, that was sleep paralysis. And almost always my sleep paralysis was coupled with the hallucinations. So I would be unable to move and hear someone breaking in, or unable to move and feel bugs crawling all over my skin. I mean, they were almost always really horrific hallucinations. Disrupted nighttime sleep. And that is unlike public perceptions, people with narcolepsy do not sleep all of the time. The timing of our sleepiness is off. So when we feel sleepy during the day, but we can also struggle to fall asleep at night. The way I try and explain some of this is sleeping is really not a good experience for people with narcolepsy normally. It's really a horrific experience. And so I found myself fighting falling asleep at night because I didn't want to experience all these horrific things. So that would make everything else really worse. And so a lot of times people with narcolepsy, maybe even subconsciously, will try and avoid sleeping at night. And it causes even more disrupted nighttime sleep. So you fall asleep and you wake up. Automatic behavior. When I typed vanilla ice cream in that document, that was automatic behavior on my part. Automatic behavior is a continuation of a routine activity with little conscious awareness and often without any memory of it. That is a perfect explanation of me typing vanilla ice cream. There are two types of narcolepsy: narcolepsy with cataplexy and narcolepsy without cataplexy. Recent research suggests that narcolepsy with cataplexy is caused by a lack of hypocretin, which is a key neurotransmitter that helps sustain alertness and regulate the sleep and wake cycle. Less is known about narcolepsy without cataplexy. So for diagnosis, it typically includes a 24-hour sleep study, which includes the 24-hour nighttime portion, which is polysomnography, and a daytime nap portion, or a multi-sleep latency test, to record one's brain waves. The diagnosis is mainly based on how quickly and frequently one goes into rapid eye movement, REM sleep, or dream sleep during these tests. Now, this picture I took when I went there to the Nakamura Clinic in Japan. And that's a picture of me the night that I started my sleep study. I don't look particularly happy to be there, and I'm really not, because it's not a lot of fun, you know? But this is a picture of me also when I'm getting ready to finish I'm starting my 5th nap of the day. And I am excited because it's almost over. And I am laughing and happy at this because the only entertainment they had for me there was a TV, which showed daytime Japanese television. I didn't understand anything that they were saying, but it's so animated and entertaining. Now, a couple weeks later, when I went back to the Nakamura clinic and I saw the doctor there and he gave me my results and he said, you have narcolepsy. He asked me, what is it that you thought was happening to you when at night when you're experiencing all this? What did you think was happening? And I said, I thought my house was haunted. And he said, old way of thinking. And he said it in a kind way. It didn't seem at all patronizing to me, but I thought, how profound, because the same old thinking brings about the same old results. If I had continued to tell myself, it's just hauntings or whatever, you just doubled over laughing because it was really funny. If I continued to poo-poo my symptoms and didn't go for help, I never would have received a diagnosis. For treatments, the treatments for narcolepsy are wake promoters, stimulants, or histamine-directed medications for daytime sleepiness. For nighttime medications, you take nighttime medications to increase wakefulness and reduce occurrence of cataplexy. Antidepressants are used to decrease the occurrence of cataplexy, and you do scheduled daytime naps, which are very important. There are coping strategies, and all of these treatments and the coping strategies work for some people, and some they don't work for. You just have to try to see what works for you. For the coping strategies, social support, such as meetup groups or social media, I think that works for everybody personally. I think that's super important. And improvements in general health through sleep hygiene, diet, and fitness. Life with narcolepsy. I had a big fear of starting treatment and of changing treatment because the treatments that they use, which I just explained, they are not things that you can start or stop willy-nilly. You have to titrate up and titrate down. You have to be under the constant supervision of your doctor when you're doing this. I mean, not like constant supervision, but under the supervision of your doctor while you're doing this. And I mean, there are things like I tried and they didn't work. Some things made my dreams even a little bit worse. And it affects the people around you. You know, it's not just you. And I was really hesitant when one thing didn't work to try another one. But I'm so glad I hung in there and stuck it out. I also had a fear of laughing. This is the absolute hardest for me because I like to think I'm a fun person. I really enjoy people. I really enjoy talking to people. I really enjoy having fun, and I really enjoy laughing. But laughing caused me to lose control of my body, and that was not fun. And cataplexy is horrific. And the most important memory that stands out for me with cataplexy is when I got diagnosed, right after I was diagnosed, when I was starting my treatment journey, I guess I'll call it, my husband was sent to Afghanistan. So I was in Japan by myself. And I did get to go home to New Mexico for a little while and then come back. But for the majority of the time, I was in Japan and I didn't know that many people and nobody understood what I was going through. And when my husband came back, we were invited to the general's house, the base commander's house, for desserts. They invited like 12 couples. So it was not a big event. It was it was a huge honor to be invited. And we went and I was really excited to be there. But when we walked in, they had all the desserts on crystal plates. They had a crystal punch bowl with little crystal glasses that you could have the like fresh made lemon juice that was in this crystal punch bowl. And I remember thinking, oh dear God, please let there be a paper cup somewhere around here. And there wasn't, it was all crystal. So I grabbed the crystal glass of lemonade and I took it and I literally found a wall to stand against. And I stood up against the wall and I thought, nobody talk to me, nobody make me laugh. If I drop this crystal glass on the floor and break it, I will be mortified. And it really hit me like, I'm becoming a wallflower. And that's the opposite of my nature. And it was a really low point. And I felt like I sunk really low. And I thought, I don't think I can continue like this. Like something's gonna give, you know, I can't go on like this. But the night went on and I didn't laugh and I didn't drop the crystal glass and I live to see another day. Weight gain. Woo! That's a big one too. No pun intended. I've gained a lot of weight. A lot of people with narcolepsy gain a lot of weight. A lot of people with sleep issues in general gain a lot of weight. It is something that I struggle with to this day. I adopted a dog. When I was afraid about starting treatments, and I was afraid about taking the nighttime medications because it would make me sedated, and I didn't think I would wake up if there was an emergency because my husband was gone, my doctor told me, why don't you get a dog? I think it'll really help you. So I did. I adopted this cute little munchkin. Moko is her name. And she's 11 and a half now. And she helped me tremendously because when I would go to bed at night, she would cuddle up right next to me. And if I started to have a hallucination, I could feel that she was still next to me. I could feel her warmth. And I would think if someone was breaking into my house, she would be barking. So it must be a hallucination and it's not actually helping. A year later, we returned to the United States and I got a job working as a secretary part-time. And it was the easiest job I have ever had as a secretary. And I worked half the amount of hours or less than I was used to normally working. And I still failed at it. I got fired because I was unreliable by no fault of my own. I didn't wake up on time. I was late to work. I would fall asleep at my desk. And I mean, I was trying so hard to live a pre-narcolepsy normal with narcolepsy, and it was impossible. And by doing that, I mean, I really was just wearing myself down, and I ended up having more health problems, and my stress and my depression and anxiety were through the roof. And it was really a blessing in disguise that I lost that job because it forced me to really learn how to cope with this illness. I learned that my abilities changed, but my interests did not. And that's a hard thing because you still have the same interests, but you're just not able to do the things that you did before. But I really tried to focus on the abilities I still have because I do still have a lot of abilities. And I try to not get rid of all my old interests. I mean, I found new interests, but I also kept some of my old interests, but just had to modify them to work with the abilities that I still have. I found a community. So in, I think it's probably 2011 or 2012, 2011 probably, we're still in Okinawa. I spent a lot of time on the internet and I found a blog called Rim Runner, which was none other than Julie Flygare's blog. Yep. And I wrote messages to her. I posted comments and she responded to me. And I thought for the first time in my life, I was not alone. And that changed everything. Oh, there's a delay, sorry. Here we go. I have a very supportive husband and family. I am so fortunate to have a supportive husband and family. I've learned I need to manage my stress levels because the worse my stress is, the more exacerbated my symptoms are of narcolepsy. Everything is worse. The hallucinations are worse, the paralysis is worse, the daytime sleepiness is worse, the cataplexy is worse. When I say everything is worse, I mean everything is worse when my stress is high. I take my medication it took me a long time to come to terms with having to take medication. And now I realize it's really a tool that helps me. It's not an annoyance anymore. I have to plan for naps daily, especially when I travel. And I still love to travel. So this is a picture of Nick and I in China. And this is right after we got back from Afghanistan. And it is so, I mean, it's the summertime. You can see how beet red I am in this picture. And my husband, it's so hot. We had gone to see the Terracotta Warriors and it was so exciting and so much fun. But I had this sleep attack come on. I was like, oh my God, I have to find a place to sleep right now or I'm just gonna get in fetal position on this concrete floor with a huge crowd around me. And when I say it's crowded there, I mean, a village we visited had over 3 million people in it. It is so crazy crowded there. So we pushed through the crowds, found our way outside to a little picnic table, a concrete picnic table, and I had a concrete bench and a concrete table. And I sat down and put my head down and I just fell asleep so hard. And I don't know, I slept for 15 minutes or so. I really have no concept of time when I take a nap. It could be 5 seconds, it could be 2 hours, but I either look at my clock or I ask my husband. But when I lifted my head up and woke up, I just saw my husband sitting across from me, just waiting for me to, finish my nap and making sure that I was safe and everything was okay. I've learned I had to face my fears. It's a huge part of coping. I like to paint, I like art, I like sewing, I like crafting, I like music. So for some of my fears, the scariest things I have are the hallucinations. I had this woman who came to me in my dreams. Actually, I guess not in my dreams, just in my sleep. And she was so terrifying. She was semi-transparent and she had these crystal blue eyes that as I moved would track me everywhere I went, even if she stood still. And she had these metal teeth, sharp metal teeth that would just gnash at me. And it was terrifying. And I thought one day, you know what? I am going to harness this and I'm going to paint it. And I did. I did a watercolor of her and she's never haunted me again. I mean, I look at her picture now and she doesn't even seem that scary to me. Music. I love music. I love to sing and I'm not very good at it. So it's not great for the people around me, but it's important. So when I'm driving and if I'm on the road for more than like 15 or 20 minutes, I have playlists that I have queued up that are, really upbeat music that I know all the words to, and I put them on and I sing along with them, and it helps keep me more alert and awake. And if I start stumbling on the lyrics, then it's an indicator to me that my brain is feeling sleepy before I start to feel sleepiness. And that gives me a couple extra minutes to find a place to pull over safely and take a nap. That's all part of being self-aware, I think, and finding ways to cope. Now, again, like I said, things that work for me are not going to work for everybody, but I do strongly believe that there is something that will work for you if you work on it and try and find whatever it is. And it usually has to do with things that you're genuinely interested in. So I use these tools that I have as a way to cope. And I've also learned to be kind to myself. I try to be kind to other people, but I'm not always very kind to myself. We all say that we're our harshest critic, and that's the truth. I mean, there are times where I would be so sleepy and I would go into the bathroom and try and keep myself awake, and I would literally slap the hell out of myself. I would slap myself across the face so hard to try and jolt myself awake. And I remember one time someone coming out of the stall behind me right after I did it, looking at me absolutely horrified that I had just smacked myself. And that expression on their face made me think, oh my God, that is really horrible what I just did to myself. And I've learned not just in that way, but in many other ways, I have to be kind to myself. The future. I have a new way of thinking. My husband sent me this meme last week, and it is so appropriate. Little caterpillar saying, "You've changed," and a butterfly, "We're supposed to." And it's true, we are supposed to. And I hope that I continue to change, because I know there are going to be moments where I go right back to that little caterpillar that hasn't metamorphosized, and where I'm feeling low and down and stressed. And I may need to come up with more tools to cope if the ones I'm using now don't continue working. But I hope that I will continue to work and change. I need to enjoy my wakeful hours. That is something I try and focus on. Now, I know you can't do only things you enjoy during your wakeful hours. Still got to do the dishes, still got to clean, still got to do what you got to do. But I try and balance it with things that I enjoy. I look forward to traveling more with my husband. He's now retired from the military, grown full facial hair, still as cute as ever. And I've learned I have to take life as it comes, because it's going to keep on coming. And it's not always easy. And when you have hard times, it makes the things you struggle with even harder. In 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 T-cell lymphoma. My mom is, next to my husband, she's my favorite person. And it was really hard. We moved from San Antonio to Georgia so that I could help care for her while my dad is flying because he's a pilot. And so he has to travel for work. And I was really afraid I was going to fail her, to be honest. I thought, how am I going to take care of her? Like I can't even work, you know? And I don't have kids. I don't have that experience to pull from to where people say like, oh, you've raised kids, you know, you can do it. I didn't have anything to pull from. And I really thought, I'm going to fail her. And how am I going to care for her? But it was so important for me to be there to care for her. And I've done it. Like, it's amazing. I'm so thankful, but it seriously takes a village. You have to ask for help. I mean, there were times when things were dark and scarier than other times, and where I thought, I may have to take her to the emergency room tonight, you know? But if I take my nighttime medication, I'm not going to be able to drive her to the emergency room. So I'd have to call a neighbor and say, hey, listen, do you mind being on call tonight? So if we have to take my mom to the emergency room, you can drive. And they were always happy to help. And it's hard to ask for help, but it's necessary. So, because if I didn't take my nighttime medication, then I would be of no use to her or anyone the next day. So care for the caregiver is so important, and you have to take care of yourself. I taught CPR for the Red Cross for years. And I used to tell my students that if you're giving chest compressions to someone and you're the only one there to give them to them, if you start getting tired, physically tired, and can't do it, you have to take a break. Step back, take a break, because you're that person's best chance of survival. And then get right back to it as soon as you can. And that's the truth of everything. If I need to take a break, I just remind myself that I need to take a break so that I can be refreshed and come back to the work I need to get done afterwards. My mom, by the way, is doing much better. Just in case anyone's wondering, she's doing much better, thank goodness. I also think it's super important to participate in research. I have participated in research in the past, and I hope to do it again in the future. This is a picture of me in all its glory doing about 2 months worth of research in the beginning of 2020 that I did, where I went off of my meds, and they did a ton, I don't even know, like a dozen or something, overnight studies, sleep studies, and then daytime sleep studies, and a bunch of cognitive tests without sleep, with meds, without meds. It was nuts. And it's not always pretty, but it's important. And research is the only way that we can really do something to help develop new treatments and medications for narcolepsy. Here's another picture of me. You can see how tired I am. I'm super tired there. However, look at that face. This is the end of the cycle. And I was so glad that I hung in there and I did it. A little delirious, but absolutely thrilled to have participated. Also, just so you know, there's a lot of research you can do that doesn't have anything to do with like uncomfortable things like sleep studies. I did one research where I wore a watch for 30 days and it tested my sleep. I talked to someone on the phone for 30 minutes and that was part of research. There's a lot of stuff you can do, which is not uncomfortable at all, but it's so important for us to do it. Raising awareness. So it takes 8 to 15 years for the average person with narcolepsy to be diagnosed. 8 to 15 years is way too long. It's 8 to 15 years too long. I was so fortunate to be diagnosed as quickly as I was, and that is not common at all. But it is so important that we raise awareness so that it doesn't take so long for people to be diagnosed. Right now, it is said that 50% of people with narcolepsy are diagnosed. That is astonishing and horrifying to think that only half of the people with narcolepsy are walking around out there and have no idea what's going on and what's wrong with them, and that there are answers to what they're struggling with. So by raising awareness, we can help these people get diagnosed and have a better future. It's so important. I like to say that, you know, by doing like what I'm doing right now in talking to you, this is raising awareness because we're explaining what the symptoms are. So patients know what terminology to use when they talk to their doctors. It explains the symptoms to doctors. So doctors know what questions to ask because let's face it, you're going to most likely go to your primary care doctor and they are used to treating everybody for their whole body health. They aren't sleep specialists. They don't know all of this stuff. And if they do, that's fantastic. But a lot of them don't. And that's, no fault of their own. But if we raise awareness, it's going to let everybody, from the patients to the family members, to the bystanders, to the teachers, to everybody, be able to recognize these things and use the proper terminology for the symptoms so we can help people get diagnosed. Also, it's very important to know that not everyone with narcolepsy will have all of the symptoms. So if you're watching this and you think, well, I've had some of that sleep paralysis she's talking about, and I've had some of those hallucinations, but I have never had any drop attacks. That doesn't mean you don't have narcolepsy. Or if you've just experienced one of the symptoms and none of the others, it doesn't necessarily matter. Please speak to your sleep doctor about it, or to your doctor, and ask for a referral to a sleep doctor about it. Now, this is my take-home point. When we are talking about all these statistics, where it's 1 in 2,000 people, 200,000 Americans, 3 million people worldwide, 8 to 15 years for diagnosis, half of the people are diagnosed. Those are statistics. But what I want people to think about when we quote those statistics is about that individual, about that one person, because the person behind that statistic is often invisible and forgotten. And narcolepsy already is an invisible illness that we're living with, and we feel invisible and alone with it. So think of that person and not the statistic. So I am sharing my story today, and I thank you for joining me as part of the Rising Voices of Narcolepsy program, which is a nonprofit of the nonprofit organization Project Sleep, which empowers patient advocates to share their stories and improve public understanding of narcolepsy. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I will happily answer any questions.
Yay!
I'm gonna clap for myself because I'm glad I made it through.
Yay, Chelsea, great job. Great job. I'm gonna go
Now
ahead.
drink some water, sorry.
Yes, go ahead, have some water. Oh, wow, that gave me chills. You had me crying. I have
Aww.
all the feels.
I had tissue nearby, but I didn't break down. I'm surprised and thankful.
Let's see if we can do that so we can both be on screen together. That should hopefully put us, there we go. Yay. Okay. Well, my goodness, what a presentation. There's so much there. And so send over your questions. We have one question from Katie here already. And Katie has asked, given that airlines are totally on their own schedule, how do you keep from missing flights?
Oh, this is a good question, actually. It's taken a while for me to learn to ask for help for things, but I travel a lot, and I have learned that if I go to the gate agent and say, hey, listen, I have narcolepsy, I'm totally going to fall asleep. And is there any way that you can notify me when it's time to board? And they're always so busy. So usually they'll literally put me in a wheelchair up by the gate. And I just have my little neck pillow and I just take a little nap and I'm right next to the gate. And then I'm like comforted knowing I'm not going to miss my flight, because otherwise, I mean, honestly, there were many times where I would like have hallucinations, like as I'm falling asleep, waiting to board my flight, that I've missed my flight. And I have found that that's something that happens a lot with narcolepsy, that if you're worried about something, that you tend to hallucinate that exact thing. Mm-hmm. So it decreases my stress levels also when traveling, to just be like, I mean, I've learned I just have to be shameless and just like say like, hey, listen, I have narcolepsy. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, there are a lot of times where I felt a lot of shame. And having it, especially when I was first diagnosed, people who laughed at me, people I cared about who laughed at me when I told them about it. And it was really mortifying. And it took me years to get to a point to where I could just say it now and not feel embarrassed. But that helps me.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, I think when you do that at airports, do you suggest the wheelchair if they don't? Because I find often people don't know what to, if you say, I have narcolepsy, help me, like they don't, it's not necessarily they're not caring, but they might not know what to do. And sometimes we don't know what we need, but do you
Right.
make that suggestion or?
I didn't, well, I do now because one of the gate agents thought of it. And I thought that's a fantastic, because I usually would just sit as close as I could to the gate agent. Um, but they get so busy, and so I was always afraid they're going to forget, or they'll just get caught up with whatever they're doing. I mean, because sometimes it could be an hour before boarding that I tell them this. So one gate agent thought about it, put me in a wheelchair, and I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I felt a little guilty at first, like, am I taking a wheelchair from someone who's going to need it? And they're like, no, we have tons of wheelchairs here at the airport. So since then, I have suggested it to other gate agents.
That's wonderful. Great idea.
Thank you.
So we have a question here from Elizabeth. Oh, I forgot to say also, we have people tuned in from New York, Indiana, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. Those are some of the locations
Wow.
people mentioned. Down the street, I think in Georgia, I'm assuming. So all the locations, oh, in California, and Claire is here. I don't know where Claire is right now in the world. So, so yeah, lots of great people. So we have Elizabeth has asked a question. She remembers reading that Japan has highest rates of narcolepsy in the world. Do you know if that's still true? And she wonders if that's why the doctors might have been more familiar with it than in other countries.
I have read that they have a higher rate of narcolepsy, and I think that's like a genetic thing, but it might be why they. I mean, I was not a Japanese doctor that I saw in the military originally that told me to get the study done, but it might have made it easier for me to find a sleep clinic that's really accessible. One thing that I thought was really interesting and cool about the Japanese culture, or at least in Okinawa, is napping is a huge part of their day. They literally have curtains on their car windows that they pull, and they'll pull over after lunch or whenever and just pull their little curtains on their windows and recline and take a nap in their car. These are people without narcolepsy, just part of their culture. And I thought that's fantastic. And maybe they do that because there are so many people in their culture that have narcolepsy, that their whole culture, has a better understanding of the need for sleep. I don't know.
So I've heard something a little different. I spoke with the Japanese patient organization a few weeks ago, actually.
Okay.
And they said their culture is actually so work hard, that people are actually so exhausted from working that everyone's falling asleep on public transportation, which reminds me of what you said about taking naps in their car. So a little bit, not necessarily that it was an appreciation for sleep, but maybe a lack of appreciation for the importance of the nighttime and working.
Right. And I was in Okinawa, which is an island. So island life, it's like from Hawaii to mainland, United States can be very different. So that's probably where the napping in the cars is probably just an Okinawan thing.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So we have plan to study abroad. Oh yeah. So Megan's really happy to hear you talking about your travel because her daughter is, hi Megan. So Megan was on our Nerd Alert in February as our special guest. So we're so
awesome.
She's tuned in, and so plan to study abroad. And so it's great to see you continue to travel.
Yes.
Yeah. What is your favorite place that you've been to, do you think?
Oh gosh. I would say the most beautiful, like scenery wise, is Scotland. That's definitely the most gorgeous place I've ever been to. I don't know, Italy. I really, really, really loved Italy. I loved everything about Italy. The Swiss Alps are like probably the most majestic place. I don't know, it's hard to choose. I've been to, I don't know, probably close to 30 countries. So
Wow. So you mentioned about, that job and transitioning away from working. Can you just share a little bit more about that? Because I think that's just one of the,
yes.
most thing that I always remembered so much about your story
Yeah, I actually forgot this part in my presentation. I think I was going to say something and I skipped it. So thank you. I didn't realize how much I put my, had my self-worth come from being a career woman and having a job. And when I was no longer able to work, I felt really worthless. I mean, I really felt like a total loser. And I laugh because it's so sad, but it's so true. And I started going to therapy, and I'm still going to therapy. I think it's very important. Everybody should. And my therapist told me, well, why don't you try and do small things, do things that you enjoy. Take on a small project, whether it's refinishing a piece of furniture or sewing something small. Do a small project, something tangible, and that you can look at the finished product and feel a sense of accomplishment from. And I started doing that, and it helped so tremendously. It really helped my self-worth and a feeling of accomplishment, because I wasn't getting a feeling of accomplishment through anything I was doing and anything that fed me, fed my soul or whatever. So I do that a lot now. I love to garden, and I can see little seedlings grow, and I can, grow squash that I can cut and eat, and I can sew, and I could make a quilt for someone or a dress for a little girl and see her wear it. Those things are really important to me, and they absolutely help my self-worth. That is definitely something, and it's hard. I mean, I did try to get a disability, and I finally did get it, but it took me 8 years of battling it with a lawyer. So yeah, it is hard. And I know that a lot of people out there with narcolepsy really struggle with that.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey. I'm a big proponent of therapy as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and not because, yeah. And I mean, I love that quote, the evolution of the butterfly and all that. And I remember that art part. I don't think you had that art part in your
presentation. I added it because my husband just sent it to me the other day. And I was like, I'm going to add this to and also because to me, it meant so much coming from him, because I'm not the same person he married. We got married, and 2 years later, I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. 2 years later, I had my onset of narcolepsy. So I was really so different. But he still loves me and is still there for me. And I'm so fortunate to have him. And so when he sent me that meme, it meant even more to me, I think, than if it had come from anybody else.
I love that. And you mentioned I was curious when you said about, not knowing if you'd be able to be as helpful to your mom. Have you felt that anything about your experience with narcolepsy and learning to advocate for yourself helped you help advocate for your mom in any ways?
Tremendously. Actually, I had a conversation with my mom on the phone yesterday, and she said to me, because I practiced this with her, and she said, everything that you said, you've implemented, all of the coping strategies that you've learned, and the different things, and the way that you've learned to advocate, you have taught me to do. So she said for herself with her cancer, and I have absolutely implemented with her. And I think in a lot of ways it helps her, because when she struggles and she says I just can't do anything. I don't feel up to it. I can't do whatever. And I'm like, Mom, you got to give your body a break, and she'll see me give myself a break and a nap, and I don't have cancer, so they're two totally different things, but it's something that you can take and apply all over the board, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I just was thinking, when you started that story, you said, well, I don't know if I'll be helpful to her. So
I had no idea.
I was surprised, because I feel like my mom's health issues, I've been like, oh, hello, I'll be the patient advocate. And then I've been, once again, surprised how frustrating the healthcare system is.
Yeah.
I'm like, how helpful can I be? But I thought, oh, I'll be able to, get what I need to help my mom
yeah.
really easily, because of my own experience as a patient, and then remembering how much bureaucracy there is.
There is, but
yeah.
my mom has also been very fortunate to have a really great team of healthcare workers. And I mean, I have such a massive respect for people in healthcare and what they do, because they wouldn't do it if they didn't care about people, you know, and want to help them. And sometimes we just need to help them help us.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen anything about doing art about your hallucinations? Have you seen anyone write any research papers, anything like that?
No, but that sounds like a good idea.
I think so. I think so. They've talked about how people with narcolepsy might be more creative or, you know, artistic.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But I love this idea of, you know, art around your hallucinations. And I know at least one of our RVNers has done some striking artistic depictions, but I think that should just be more of a thing.
I think so too.
Yeah. Maybe a nerd alert for the future.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think I just want to thank you for also mentioning research and how important that is. I think that was a huge part of your presentation that really sticks out to me, because there continue to be a lot of opportunities for people, and I think it can sound scary. And so I just love when you said there's things you can do, it won't even hurt.
Yeah, not at all. You don't even have to put an electrode on you or miss your meds or anything.
Yeah, but thank you for all that you've done for research, and just hope we can continue to inspire more people to participate. I'll actually be doing a Facebook Live tomorrow during the day, Instagram Live, excuse me, with a researcher up in Montreal to help more people do an MRI. So to scan people's brains. So Chelsea, if you haven't participated in that, you should consider that one too. But
I will, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely consider that.
Yeah. And so thank you again, Chelsea. It's just really exciting to see this presentation to come together. And I can't wait for what's next. I feel like we just got to line up lots of speaking engagements for you and continue to share your story with so many more people.
Thank you.
And I don't see any other questions here on the Facebook. So I think we should go ahead and call it a night. And I just want to thank Lauren as well. Lauren
Yes, thank you, Lauren.
Who helped prepare Chelsea for tonight. And Chelsea, just thank you for all that you put into this, and all the heart and soul and laughter and joy that you bring to me and our community.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, because I wouldn't be on here if it weren't for you and the Rim Runner blog from all those years ago. And yeah, and your Narcolepsy Not Alone campaign. I mean, everything that you do, Julie, like, you're my hero. You really are. And I'm not just saying that because we're on video.
Well, likewise. So we'll just go with that. Okay. We're not going to start a hero fest.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Chelsea. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Bye.
See you again soon. Bye.